working things into motion. Meet a native man with a focus, holding to a promise that everything eaten by the locust will be returned. God is the reservation curse. Please let these prayers be heard. It's a holy nation, holy nation, holy nation. It's a holy nation, royal priesthood. It's a holy nation, holy nation, holy nation. It's a holy nation, royal priesthood. One day as I drop on my knees and I raise up, sing with a firm foundation. Got filled with the greatest word and I'm speaking the truth of the old generation. Can't even work together in single vision. And sinners watching, then got the church and syndication. Be like shouting to the wind, but nobody listen. And I'm on my knees and if I've been waiting for the television. What's going on, everyone? Hey. Good night, good night, good night. Good evening, good evening. I'm saying good night. You know, if we were back in the Caribbean, people show up and they say good night. Here they say good evening. All right. I was going through my open with Royce, my son, and he was like, "Well, Dad, that's like long time ago. So say good evening, don't start." So we're glad that you guys are joining us on Facebook. We have a really, really great topic, and this is the 8th installment of Candid Conversations. And why do we have candid conversations? Because brothers and sisters, man, we need it right now. All right. And on this talk, we're going to discuss some hard things about racism and faith, right? And how they interplay. You know, we just dialogue. We try to probably see if the Lord, via his Spirit, will reveal some new things in our hearts. The world has changed within a couple months, right? Very, very different, very, very different space. And I definitely believe by just coming together and having a conversation is a great way to start. It's called Candid Conversations because white folks, we need to talk. Right? So anyway, so I was talking to Nate Sabin yesterday, and we're talking about all that's been going on. And of course, you know, it usually comes back to quickly, what do we need to do? What do we need to do, right? What do we need to go back to our church and actually do? And I was thinking about that. And, you know, usually in situations like these, we want the quick 3-point fix so we could kind of move on. But I honestly believe the answer is what we need to become, right? What do we need to be as a church? Not so much what we need to do. We've been doing a lot. But I think the answer in essence is what we need to be. So, and I also believe that we need to stay having these conversations. We need, in essence, to just stay at the table, right? Right? We honestly believe that we, as a family, as a body, we really need some deep counseling, okay? Right? And even though it may be stressful and it may stretch us, we need to stay at the table. I honestly believe that a transformation will come from us, in essence, staying at the table and dialoguing. I've been learning a lot through all this. So those of you who have been joining us, thank you for logging in every Monday night. And if you haven't, this is your first time, welcome. And we have on our page a lot of great content that we have been discussing throughout the past weeks. Like you say, it's part 8. So we've been doing this for roughly about a month. We have, as you can see, some great, good-looking gentlemen. You know, their ages range, but they've all impacted my life. And I want to start with Jay. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to let them do their own introductions. Jay, I'll start with you, and then we go to Dan, and then Mark.
Okay. Well, I'm Jay Excobar Haskins. I am a longtime musician who did not become a Christian probably until age 26, 27. So I've been a Christian about 13 years now. And prior to that, I was an atheist. But when I dove into the church, I dove in with both feet and both hands. Got involved in a lot of ministries beyond music, just serving, being the hands and feet. A lot of stuff with kids, a lot of stuff with, you know, I hate to call the term inner city youth, but, you know, youth in our city. And just been a really strong advocate for inclusivity and dialogue in the church, um, because we're supposed to be set apart from the world, but we have to know how to relate to the world as well, because the church dies when we're speaking different tongues.
Dan, that's you.
Wow. Okay. My name is Dan Adler, and I actually grew up in rural Wisconsin. So out in the country, little tiny church. Started playing guitar, young kid, and started writing songs and performing and recording and things like that. I ended up as the worship pastor at Church of the Open Door here in the Twin Cities when it was about 350 people back in 1985, and then was there for 11 years. It grew into a big mega church, and I got hired on with a group called Promise Keepers while I was still at the church. And I used to travel with Promise Keepers about 6 times a year and lead big multi-ethnic, multi-denominational men's gatherings around the country with them. And that was a big influence on me in feeling like I had to leave my big mega church. And I felt God was calling me to use whatever influence and platform I had to try to bring the church together. So in 1995, January of 1996, Sandy, my wife, and I, we left the church and started a nonprofit organization called Heart of the City Ministries, which is a multi-ethnic music ministry. And our focus was to try to bring a message and a model and an experience of multi-ethnic worship and biblical unity. And we formed this big multi-ethnic band called the Heart of the City Worship Band, which has been in flux over these years. We've had some members who've been with us from the very beginning, 24 years now, but other people who came and gone over the years. Ryan has been part of that over the years. And we started by holding gatherings of worship and prayer, and as big gathering things. And then eventually we ended up being where we kind of came in more as a group, as a performing group, to kind of model and share a message about it to churches. And so that's what I've been doing for 24 years now.
Go ahead, Mark, you're up.
Marco.
Yes, Marco.
Wow, yeah, I've been here in Minneapolis for 7 years now. I can't believe it.
Wow.
It was 30 years in Nashville, and that's where I birthed my music career as a touring musician and a background singer to producer, and then did a lot of mostly Christian music, and then some country music, but mostly Christian music. And was a part of a lot of big careers back in the 80s and 90s, and had quite a run. And then in 98, the Lord called me to follow him on a different path. So since July of 98, I've been on a different path from where I was. And we don't have time here to talk about that, but it has led me and my family here to Minneapolis, and all my friends in Nashville, like, why Minneapolis? And I would just say that I have felt from the beginning when we moved here that there was a trembling here in the Twin Cities. That's a God trembling, something that it was bubbling. It was like, whoa, what? I didn't know what it was, but I'm starting to figure out what it is.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. So these guys are very, very modest gentlemen. So Jay is also a producer, right? And he's probably done all of everything with regards to with regards to music. The intro is an actually song that he produced for Marcus Montana, and Dan Adler, in my opinion, has been carrying the torch for multi-ethnic diversity for the past 20 years here, encouraging congregations, putting the band together to help people worship across ethnic and denominational lines. And he's been a great mentor and influencer in my life in how I frame worship experience for places that I have served, right? And as Mark has said very, very modestly, he has had a huge hand in, based on his gift, in shaping to more degrees than people may know Christian contemporary music as it was birthed in the 80s and the 90s. So tonight we're going to talk about multi-ethnic worship, right? As it relates to the church, right? Multicultural, right? As it relates to the church. So Peter Shue, another good friend of mine who wasn't able to be here tonight, so he posted an article last week, and I'm going to share that article, and then we're just going to take 2 minutes and listen to it. So let me see. So the article was posted by NPR, right? It's NPR, and it reads, multiracial congregations may not bridge the racial divide. So we're going to talk about this because I think all of these gentlemen have had their hands fused in some layer, in some part of this, and we're going to kind of discuss this. So let's listen to what this person is saying here for just a couple minutes, and then we'll dive in.
Of overcoming racial injustice. The role of churches in that effort comes into focus. Christianity in this country at times has accommodated racism rather than opposing it. And some efforts by churches to promote reconciliation have run into obstacles. NPR's Tom Jelton has one such story.
In April 2018, on the anniversary of Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination, a megachurch pastor from Dallas named Matt Chandler spoke at a conference of evangelicals. His topic, the troubles he had getting his congregation to consider issues of race.
It is a predominantly white congregation situated in a place where more than likely we will always be predominantly white.
In remarkably candid remarks, Chandler shared how, if he talked about justice in biblical times, no problem.
But if I applied it to race, then all of a sudden I was a Marxist or I'd been watching too much of the liberal media. If I spoke on abortion, I was applauded as courageous and a ferocious man of God, and yet when I would tackle race, I was being too political.
On that day, Chandler's comments resonated with other pastors who have struggled to make their congregations more aware of racism. So what can pastors do? One idea is to promote multiracial worship, congregations with people of different backgrounds coming together. It's actually become a movement with a godfather of sorts, sociologist Michael Emerson. He's written 2 books on it, Divided by Faith and United by Faith. The key to building a multiracial congregation, Emerson argues, is to do it intentionally, deliberately.
You put it into your mission statement. You think about who is up on the platform during worship. You think about the artwork and the books you're using and the music you're playing.
One pastor Emerson inspired is Randall Lyle at Meadow Ridge Baptist Church in Fort Worth, Texas.
I'll end it there. All right. Let's jump in. Okay. So does that work? I'm going to put it to the panel. If you can keep your answers to about 3.5 minutes, we could bounce it around and get as much in. Whoever wants to go first.
What's the question again?
So the question is, does what is suggested work? Intentionalism with the songs, making sure that there's diversity on stage. So the big question on the topic of tonight is whether or not why multiculturalism has failed to bridge the racial divide, right? And we're looking at it from a church perspective. Go, Dan.
Oh man, it's so complicated from my perspective. I think it is working in some churches where it's a very welcoming place, and people feel like they are welcome to be who they are. I've been interested to see a couple of my songs that have been done nationally. I've seen a few churches who've performed them, and I was fascinated by seeing the makeup of diversity of the congregation who did them. I had a song, I think it was my Resurrection Chant song, and I saw a church out in the San Francisco Bay Area that was like crazy diverse in the choir, just the choir alone, and and it was really fun to see that. I was encouraged to see that. But I think you know, I don't feel like an expert in you know, not being a pastor of a church that's doing a multi-ethnic church as a pastor. I think that would be a curious thing. But I think I guess I would delineate sometimes. I think being realistic, I think the word multi-ethnic versus multicultural is something to really be talked about. Being realistic, because if you really be multicultural, I don't even know if it's possible anywhere where you really truly have multicultural expressions in all of what you are, and then yet you're a unified congregation. I think sometimes that's it becomes so many different groups of otherness that they wouldn't gel. So I tend to use the word multi-ethnic because there's going to be a blending of cultures of sorts in one way or the other, and it'll probably lean one way or the other, depending on, you know, who's making the most decisions behind it as far as the styles and things like that. So I don't know if that's a really good answer.
Anyone else can follow.
Yeah, Dan's way down this road, way further than I am, and my wife told my kids when they would walk in the room to enter the room listening. So I'm more of a listener on these kinds of Zoom conference calls. But in my experience, you know, I'm spoiled because I'm in a ethnic diverse bubble in the music industry, because all my friends, I've worked with hundreds and thousands and alongside people of all ethnicities, and have cherished that. One thing that I would find that I ran into was as a white dude, I had to earn trust. And I would just say that maybe underneath the very first thing that needs to be established is trust, maybe. I don't know. That's just something that I realized that I was learning in the process of doing a Black gospel record, or, you know, something that was, you know, hip hop, or, you know, whatever that was ethnically based. You know, this isn't church based, but it is Christian music. And so that is the church. But that's what I would say, is that underneath all of it, I knew that as a white man, I had to earn trust. And then from there, other things were built.
Jay, you up?
Well, this is a kind of a big onion to peel back.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
I'll relate it to first my experience in the music industry. So when I was working in the music industry, I really got my start at a time where there was a lot of change going on. And the change that was going on was that Black people were becoming executives and owners of record labels and demanding a seat at the table of major record labels, which they hadn't really had before. And the reason that they were able to do that is because the powers that be could see that Black people were leading the culture. Rap music, Black music was becoming rapidly popular, and it was becoming rapidly popular with white youth. And so Black people in those positions, certain Black people knew the power that they had, and they leveraged that power to become a whole part and partner of the music industry. That has not happened in the mainstream American church. Now there's a cultural and a divide in terms of age. People knew the power that they had. And so one of the things that I noticed, because I also work as a DJ now, so I go and I do things like I do high school dances and stuff like that. So I happen to, because I live out in the suburbs now, I go to churches in the suburbs, I visit churches in the suburbs. I see these kids who they're in church on Sunday, they have their hands up during worship, and they look really into it. They're swaying back and forth. But then I go to their high school dance, and they're the ones who are coming up to me, requesting that I play Gunna or Young Thug. So they are already being influenced by Black culture. It's not translating with their relationship to the church, and it's not translating with Black people's relationship with the church. When it comes to being multi-ethnic, other ethnic groups, other cultures, I should say, particularly cultures where English is their second language, they work very hard to assimilate with white American culture. So when they come into a church, they can make a church as multiracial and multi-ethnic as it wants to be. The culture at that church is still white, because people are assimilating to the culture that they see as dominant and the culture that they wish to aspire to. Because in America, success and beauty and basically the default of what it means to be American is framed in the stance of being a white person. And because Black people have lived here, Black Americans have lived here simultaneously with white people since the beginning of the country, and we developed and grew in and out of our own culture that's never had to assimilate with white people. When you bring us into an environment, when you bring Black people into an environment where the dominant culture is white, those of us who can't assimilate can't function in that environment. So in particular with Black Americans and white Americans, it's a very tenuous relationship to be in a church community together. In order for a church community to achieve that goal, I think it's something that needs to be multi-tiered. It needs to happen from the top down. And also, simultaneously, it needs to happen from the bottom up. Because you can hire a Black worship pastor or a Black assistant pastor, and they can be on staff and they might have fiery messages. They might come from a Black community. They might bring that with them. For the most part, they're not bringing a whole new group of people into the church, and they become the exception to the rule rather than part of the culture. Because the attendees at that church, the white attendees, they can see that Black pastor, they can respect him, and then the very next day, they can go onto their social media platform of choice and express disappointment with Black people standing up for their rights, or stand up against Black Lives Matter, or buy into white supremacist propaganda. So if from the top down, okay, we've did our diversity hire, but then from a lay leadership standpoint, they're not looking at their lay leadership. They're not looking at the elders. They're not looking at volunteer leaders. They're not looking at the people who are doing their marriage ministry, their premarital ministry. And they're not holding those people to account to be part of the multicultural solution. It is not a place that's welcoming for Black people. So I think it's a great goal that I have not seen personally effectively done. And I've seen pastors, lead pastors, with really great hearts for this, but there's no incentive structure to actually get it done.
Yeah, because it's interesting in the comment section. One of the commenters, Khan, mentioned the topic is diversity in the churches, but there are 3 white guys on the panel, and this is pretty symbolic of the problem. And then Nate joins on and I said, but there are 4 white guys now. Right? So we're talking. Here's the thing. It's important to talk about this, right? Because we can do worship together, right? I think it has moved. So Dan, Nate, other people who have been doing great multi-ethnic work. Many churches have been doing that in the Twin Cities as well as they can do it, right, for a long time. And I think we shifted from the 50s and the 60s, whereby it was great to have Black friends, right? We have left the shackles of racism in the past, and that was our understanding, right? But then we get to 2020 and we realize that there is more to deconstruct than just white songs. You see what I'm saying?
I'm going to jump in real quick for the comment section. Don't let my light skin fool you.
Yeah, he's Latino.
I am a Black man with light skin.
Yeah.
That's a whole other issue we could get into.
Right. So
my family, I've got family down in Mississippi, you know, who are the descendants of slaves who are as light skinned as me. And there's a reason that exists. Okay. But I'm a Black man. I'm strong and I'm proud. I'm just not as dark as my brother Ryan right here. Yeah.
So, and I got Latino and Spanish and whatever, you know, Carib and Arawak and Indian. Anyway, so here's the thing. Could it be that we have passed the idea of coming together and singing, right? Maybe coming together and singing is one part of what we need to evolve into as a body of Christ. And we haven't really done that work, right? So we talked about singing the songs with the organization being predominantly of one mindset, right? And the question of society and how does the church, like you raised that point. So we come and we sing together, but we go out and we vote against the interests of the people who we were just singing with. I'm gonna put it out there. Dan, you could jump in. Nate, good to have you. We're talking.
I think another again a challenge of our conversation here today is that none of us are pastors, and in some ways this conversation might be more fitting in talking about what's happening in the music industry or contemporary music, Christian music, because we might be able to speak to that better. So I always feel a little hesitant to speak on behalf of pastors who've tried and are doing it because I'm not that guy. I think one of the things that and I guess the other thing I would in the conversation about all of this though is also if the conversation I mean, is this a question that's ever asked about other ethnic groups besides the white church? And that's a curiosity to me. And that's not to invalidate the question to the white church. It's a very real thing. But I mean, you know, say I start attending an African-American congregation. Are they going to, do I need to assimilate to an African-American congregation if I go there? I would assume, yes, I would. That'd just be my assumption. That's what I would do that way. If I went to a Hispanic congregation, I would assume the same thing. I would assume that I'm going to need to mostly learn Spanish. They might do a little bit in English, but if it's mostly Hispanic congregation, I'm probably going to have to do that. So it's got to be, if we're going to talk about the church, then we have to talk about it in every situation and apply the same questions and the same critiques, I guess, on the picture as a whole. Is that fair, or am I being a defensive white guy? I don't feel defensive in saying this. To me, it's just a logical conclusion about if this conversation is about the church, then it's about the church. I think it feels like sometimes the assumption is everybody but the white evangelical churches is multicultural, and they're bringing people together from all different races, because nobody ever talks about anybody but white evangelicals. And I'm confused by the conversation when that's the only conversation. And not that doesn't need to be talked about, but shouldn't it be the whole picture? Because that would also raise the questions of why aren't they, why isn't it working in the white church? Well, why isn't it working in the Black and Hispanic church either? Why?
Well, I would say there's a couple of reasons for that. The reason why Hispanic churches exist in America is because, there's a large population of people who necessarily don't speak English. So in that instance, if you were going to a Spanish-speaking church, you'd have to assimilate to the language. Obviously, the worship would be different. And similarly, if you go to an African American church, you have to get used to the worship style of African Americans.
Right.
I would say culturally, being an African American and being somebody I grew up in an African American community, but I live in a mostly white community now. There's a difference in the acceptance level, because I think every Black church that I've ever been to has a contingent of white people, and they're some of the most popular people in the church, and they're never really asked to challenge who they are at their core as people in order to be a part of the church. It's not an expectation of them.
But wouldn't you I guess to push back on that a little bit, wouldn't you go, the reality is the culture of the African American church is going to stay the same, whether those white people are there or not. They're going to have longer services. They're going to do music a certain way. The pastors are going to have a certain way of preaching. That's not affected by whether there's white people there or not. If the white people are okay with that, they're okay to go to a longer service than what they maybe grew up with. They're okay to do music in a different way. They're okay to have the pastors preach in a different way. Even the offerings done in a different way, then they're cool. But they're not. That church is not going to be changing for those white people.
Well, let me bring this back on track, and I would answer Dan's question more directly. So the purpose of this conversation, since you've done a lot of multi-ethnic work, right? As a Black folk person, I'm saying it hasn't worked. So whether or not we decided whether it hasn't worked or not, we want to decide why that multi-ethnic, because this was a huge culture of evangelicalism, and why the question as to why we don't ask this of other groups is because the people with the power and the influence, which is predominantly white evangelicals, in essence, led a lot of separation of the body with regards to racism and division. So evangelicals, primarily white evangelical churches, they a lot of times get to set the tone for a lot of things that is popular, that is worship, that is considered the standard for church excellence, etc. So minorities come in, and we try to bring to the organization a bigger view, which I think I don't think you need to be a pastor to see this. I think this is something a Christian could just see. So what we're talking about after 80s, Promise Keepers, 90s, 2000s, 20 years of your ministry, to say, okay, we've done a lot of this, guys, but people are still rioting outside the doors. There are still mass wealth gaps. So I would say, as a person of color, it hasn't worked. I'm not saying it's not good. I'm not saying that it can't work in certain churches, but I'm saying for the overall picture of what we try to accomplish, it hasn't really helped bridge that racial divide. And that's what we're trying to get to. Nate, you had your hand up.
Yeah. I'm just sorry, I'm new to the conversation. I may have missed some really important things. And
by the way, Mark and I both have infections in our eye, by the way, just so you know.
Mark, you up next. No, like sitting back, you want to hear what you got to say.
Yeah, all my twitches are on purpose.
Yes.
No, I apologize if what I'm saying is completely ignorant. Mostly I wanted to ask, as I'm hearing what you say there, Ryan, what would working be? Like this may be a ridiculous comparison to draw, but I see a lot of people that say the mask doesn't work, and I'm like, well, doesn't work to do what? Does it, make you 100% invulnerable to any infection? Absolutely doesn't work. But does it possibly keep you from spitting on somebody while you're quoting scriptures at them? Yeah, it might work. So, a little bit of success might be something, but what do you mean by it doesn't work? Because I hear your description of what's happening socially and culturally, and I agree, we got a long way to go. my friends. We got so far to go. But I also would say, some things that have been done and have been tried have worked to do something.
Absolutely.
Maybe just getting us into the
Yeah.
same room or singing the same song at the same time, or holding hands. It's not enough. I'm not saying problem solved, let's quit talking, but
Mhm.
what exactly do you mean by it doesn't work, and what is working? That would
Okay.
be a question that
I'll
I'd
let
like
I'll
to
let
get
anybody
to.
jump in.
I'd like to jump in on that. I think that's a great question. The way that I answer that in my own mind is I have no problem with predominantly or all white churches, because there are predominantly or all white neighborhoods in the country, just like there are predominantly or all black neighborhoods in the country. The difference, I think, is, for me, for example, I live in Apple Valley, Minnesota. If I walk into Target in Valley, Minnesota is a bastion of diversity. But our churches do not look like our Target.
Yeah.
So I could go to Target, and Target might be 65% white. But the church right down the street from Target is 99% white. So in that instance, it's not reflective of the community. It is only attractive to a slice of the community, therefore leaving some of us out. And so that's what I think the breakdown is because the suburbs themselves specifically are becoming much more diverse places. Suburban churches are failing to meet the same metrics that the communities that they serve are meeting in terms of diversity.
So just Dan, real quick here. So Khan says in response to you, and you don't necessarily have to respond to this, but this is we're talking here as the chat's kind of heating up and people are. So in response, Khan was saying, black churches in essence, I think this is an important point because we all come from somewhere. It's never neutral, right? Black churches develop out of a white racism, right? Immigrant churches need the social cultural support system in a dominant white society, right? So there's a lot of things that are interplaying, and to be honest, a lot of people, a lot of communities are trying to do the standard, whoever kind of sets that standard, multi-ethnic diversity, blended services, all that stuff. My brother Mark, a lot going on. Jump in.
Whew, yeah. Well, I just feel like I have such a small slice of experience in all of this, but it's an important slice, I think, because I think music does play a role. Because when I first visited here, I went to Bunkers and saw Mambo's Combo, and I experienced something there with music and absolute. I was a minority, and but didn't feel that way. I felt completely in harmony with what was going on there, the atmosphere, the peace, the joy. There wasn't a person in the room. There's probably 200, 250 people that didn't have a smile on their face. And it wasn't Christian music, it wasn't church, but I'm telling you right now, that's what would be nice to be able to capture. How do we do that? I have no answers, but I feel like I can play a part in the music element, because that is a universal language. Music is. And that's where we are finding connection. I think food is great too. I mean, food and music and experiencing each other and the ethnicities, the diversity there. It just seems you start getting beyond that, and it just seems to get more complicated and fall apart. But why is it? I guess my question is, why is it so simple when I'm eating some Caribbean food with you, or I'm listening to some reggae and we're both enjoying it, but by the pool or something, I mean, it's like, why does that work? Why does that work? And why does it get so complicated when we are sitting together in the name of Christ? I mean, it's like, Yeah,
I
what are
think
we missing?
I think music is absolutely integral to that.
Me too.
An interesting thing that I experienced long before I was a Christian. I grew up in Philadelphia. I actually went to a DC Talk concert as somebody who was not a Christian at all. And that audience, there was a lot of Black people in that audience. And I feel like I heard a lot more Christian music on mainstream radio when I was growing up, being somebody who's not a Christian. Now it's you know, it's segregated. You know, like Jesus is segregated from the radio, and the races are segregated from each other. I feel like there's been in some ways some more segregation that's been going on, as opposed to more blending, at least from what I remember in my youth. I don't know if you guys would concur with that. I mean, you were in the industry before I was.
Yes, a lot of blending. And I would agree with you. A lot of my industry, Christian music industry peers are saying that there really isn't Christian music anymore. It's really just praise and worship is kind of Christian music now. It's not what we were doing in the 80s and 90s, which was blending. Where I found all my success was in the fusion of, so let's say I'll take Anointed, for example. It was my job as a white producer to take a traditionally Black gospel group to the white Baptist church. I mean, I've walked this bridge for my whole career and have found great success. So there is success to be had there. And I had to, but even the internal relationship, the behind the scenes with the members of Anointed and the relationships that we built over the years, and the love, you know, just through love and me not understanding some things that they're trying to communicate. And then once I finally hit it, they're in tears and I'm like, wait, what did I just do? You know, I don't know what I just did, but I hit something. And then that was even more unifying. And I want to understand more about what that is, because that's my heart. And I think that's everybody's heart here. So
Nate, you want to jump in? Dan, go ahead. Nate or Dan?
You know, thinking of a couple of these, you know, again, the question of why hasn't some of it worked? I think some of the dynamic is like one thing that surprised me, just because I was ignorant, in dealing with the African American church with Heart of the City, is the reality that this is a real social, this is a foundational organization. The African American church is foundational to the Black community. At least historically it has been. Maybe it's becoming less so, but it has been the place. It has been the place of everything. It's the source. And so the idea coming from that background of taking people from that setting and bringing them into a multicultural setting is a threat in some ways to that dynamic, because you're washing it down from the one place where life was so horrible and there was persecution, where they had their power, and where there was a sense of community that was strong and growing, was the Black church. And so there's a threat to that. And I had a really baffling effect. Ryan, I think you were with us when we went out to Colorado. It was like 2000. Was it 2001? Was it that far long ago? Maybe not that long ago. But we got invited out by Campus. Was it for Campus Crusade? Not Campus
I remember
Crusade.
that. Yep.
Was it Campus Crusade?
Yes, Campus Crusade for Christ. Yep.
Okay, but the big thing that that shocked me, completely shocked me, was that there was a new arm of Campus Crusade that was just beginning. That was all African American, and we had an album cover. In fact, it was Your Hand and My Hand together. You and I, your hand and my hand together. The album cover, making the little church in a steeple, kind of holding our hand together. And the album was called With One Voice, and that was our picture. That was our kind of logo for our group. And there was an African American woman in charge of that Campus Crusade arm, and she literally wanted me to change that logo. I want you to take that off if you guys come here. And I'm like, I'm completely proud of that. I think that's exactly what we're all about. We're about unity. And for her, that meant you want to assimilate us into the white thing. We want to have our own separate thing, the Campus Crusade for Black people, and that will be what it is. And I just strongly disagreed with her. And that what they mean, we didn't change. I said, I'm not going to be changing my album cover for one thing. It's already done. But we do what it did, and we were really well received, and we got all kinds of response from people of color who were there, feeling like they felt like for the first time they were really affirmed because of the music that we did. But that dynamic stood there and was strong, and I feel like that's another real dynamic that is out there that makes it difficult to do the multi ethnic thing. It's like even with Heart of the City, I think some of the things we've experienced is, and this is the stuff that I think could be a little microcosm of a multi-ethnic congregation is we're not white enough. Our music is not white enough, or our music isn't Black enough, or it's not Latino enough. It's a mixture of all those different things coming together, and so therefore it isn't quite what the subgroups want, and therefore Christian radio. It's about marketing and to people's tastes and flavors, and I was unhappy and frustrated with that, and for years and years, and I've kind of gotten to the place where I've just kind of accepted it now because it is what it is. And another dynamic I've noticed is that we have attended a big mega church here in the Twin Cities for years. They have a diverse group of worship leaders and a very diverse congregation that seem very happy, but their music is not diverse. And that doesn't seem to be a factor in why those people are there. And I found that curious too. So I guess some of the suppositions that I have had, I'm questioning when it comes to going, even with music, what is the effective thing that brings people together? And I read one other article that said, they felt like the article said the conclusion they came to is the multicultural worship music wasn't a factor near as much as people having relationships in the church where they felt loved and cared for. Then who cares what the music is? We want to be accepted there. So, maybe we're not, I don't know, maybe it's just more nuanced. There's so much more to it than that.
I think that's true. I think relationships drive it. I do think when we get on our private text messages, we all joke about the worship. I mean, like, I think for the most part, people want to go to church in their community. That's kind of the point that I'm more making is really, we don't want to pull Black people in Black communities from Black churches and just transplant them to white churches. But there are Black people who may have a history of worshiping one way, receiving God one way in their own community, but have moved out for one reason or another. And I think they just want a hand to hold them. And as those areas become more diverse, I think all areas of the church could become more diverse. And I do think, I alluded to this earlier, I do think that there's also a generational problem. And I think that there's a messaging that's happening with our youth. So right now, if you look at Billboard Hot 100, the Billboard Hot 100, 70% of it is either rap or featuring a rapper. And so when you have the vast majority of rap music is actually consumed by white suburban teenagers. So when you have these white suburban teenagers who their entrance into Blackness is music that's not honoring God, music that often has cursing in it, music that's not sending like a great message. And so that's what they experience from Black style music, even though there are great Christian hip hop artists and Christian gospel artists who are Black, who are making fantastic music. They're not intersecting with that in any area of their life that's tangible. So they may be at church, the music that they're hearing, which is representative of white culture, saying this is godly, which is what you're receiving from the white folks. And then this Black music that's your secret, this rap music that you listen to when you're not at church, is of the devil. And so, there's a conflict there. They're not, I mean, like, I think it's helpful to see diverse worship being acted out, where you hear, even if it takes taking some songs that are familiar and adapting, adding some soul to them. I think that goes a ways in not just sending a message to Black people themselves that you're welcome here, but also sending a message to the next generation that Blackness is not necessarily inherent with vice and crime and bad behavior.
Yeah, I would agree.
Nate, jump in.
Oh, I mean, by all means, I'm enjoying listening more than talking. The one thought that has gone around in my head as I'm hearing what we're saying, and you kind of touching on several topics and areas that seem pretty related but not the same. I wonder if part of our problem is settling. I feel like we're on a continuum. We're on some kind of a timeline. And the problem that we have, as we march from Egypt to the promised land is we're okay in the desert. We get to a place in the desert where it's pretty comfortable, and we're just kind of like, okay, this is cool. Like we're talking about music, songs. Somebody commented, it said food and music. Those things are easy, but when are we going to deal with the hard things? And that challenges me because I want to go beyond the really cool things that we've done. We had we do more of a diverse style and diverse makeup of a choir. We do that. We've done it over the years. That feels really good. And I think it helps in some ways to, take a couple steps in a direction, but it can't be the arrival point. At least that's the feeling that I have in my heart. Like I got to figure out what's the next place we go, as we move closer to Jordan and to getting across there. I really appreciate what I'm hearing you say, Jay. That helps me and informs me a lot. When I live close to you, I'm down here. We're in Inver, close to you in Apple Valley, so I know what you're talking about. We've got a diverse area around here, although my street is they all look just like me. But you never know. Things can change, but I agree our churches should, or maybe I disagree. I don't think they should only be reflecting our culture and our neighborhoods. It feels to me like we should be leading in some way, finding a way to show the culture, this is how you do it. And I think that's what we've been trying to do. I know I'm pretty familiar with what Dan's been doing over the years. And I think that's what he's trying to do is say, we should look more like this,
So here's a question. I mean, talking about this, and I like the idea of the continuum, and Jesse just mentioned, we talked about the service thing. And this is what I'm beginning to realize, that we have these conversations. It's good to be friends. And for a long time in America, Black and white folks couldn't be friends, right? We couldn't hang out together. We couldn't do so much together. That was denied. And we begin to form these relationships and we're having fun. But we're beginning to understand that the things that separate us, the real issues, are deeper than the songs and the lunch and those things. Now, and Black folks on the outside, right? We have friends, right? But we're not getting that big record deal behind us, right? Question I would ask you, Dan, right? Do you believe that if you were a Latino or a person of color, that Heart of the City would have had a 20-year run? Fair question.
That's a really good question. It depends on the the tenacity of the people doing it. I think
because it's hard for you already, right?
Oh my goodness, it's so hard, and the willingness you have to sacrifice and give up and give up and give up and give up, and to keep at it because you believe in it. I think right now, I think they would do better than I am. And I've seen
Right
that
now,
happen.
right now, you think that a person of color leading that would do better than you have in the past 20 years?
Yeah, I would say even in the last, maybe even up to 10 years, I think a person of color would do better than I have, because I've even seen, even as things come along, that's multicultural, there'll be conferences, things like that. But because and what we're doing is so amazing. I mean, I don't mean that proudly, but it's just I'm proud of everybody who's been in the group and what they contribute. And we won't be brought, it'll be some out of state group doing this big, multicultural thing, and it's coming to our city, and we don't get invited to be a part of it, and I think it's because my wife and I are white and perceived as the leaders. And so, I feel it, I feel the weight of that big time. And I feel even with the stuff that's happened with George Floyd and some of the, performers who've been performing things like that, I've hesitated to get involved until being really, really asked, because I thought I feel like I've got less of a voice right now as a white guy, no matter how diverse the rest of our group is, than probably anybody else would have. And I just feel like I don't want to push myself into a place where I don't belong, or I'm not, or it'd be better if I wasn't there. So it's a real, it's a real deal. And it depends on, I mean, even financially, everything and what you do, again, answering your question, it would be so much about if someone, I mean, the one thing that helped me, I think, sustain a little bit, although it's not been a lot, but having been at a mega church and going out, there was some few people that were behind us. But I mean, we're talking about, I have a faithful widow who's been given $20 a month for 24 years. Got a handful of people like that literally, though, have been a lifeline, not with big money or anything like that, but some of that support. So yeah, that's a long answer to your question.
I have a question for you, Dan. Do you think that part of the answer is not just because you're a white guy leading that movement, but also because some churches, some conferences, they want to have a performative moment, and they don't want to engage with somebody locally because that will mean permanence. That will mean something that they have to keep going back to. Because I see a lot of churches where they're like, we want to welcome somebody in and then say goodbye.
Yeah. Yeah, that's possible. I never thought of it that way, but I think that is possible. And that's been kind of my complaint about when we have like multicultural day, at like universities and things like that. One of the things I've always pushed with Heart of the City is what we're seeing is we're trying, because the multicultural day, we bring in, maybe we're bringing a Black gospel group who's fabulous. And the campus sits and listens to them, and they hear a Black preacher come and talk, or Latino preacher or whatever. And then they're done and they leave and we go back to normal. And what we've been trying to do and telling people is that we're trying to change the normal. We're trying to give a model of the normal can look like this. We can sing together. We can do diverse things together in unity. But we want to change our view of us and them to getting a bigger us. And we want to change their music and our music into giving us a bigger our music. And the only way that happens is by being together and being exposed to those different things like that. So, yeah.
Let me throw a question out from the chat real quick. Those guys that are posting these questions, he said these are great. Let me get a question here real quick. Some great ones. Where did it go? All right, we got 21 comments. So the question was, someone raised a question about, do we think this can work, right, without spaces speaking to white supremacy, dismantling the idea, right? Without, I guess if people want to be diverse, can we be diverse in spaces that still, in essence, either ignore white supremacy, don't believe in it, don't speak to it, speak against racism unless something crazy happens? Is that a reason why this probably isn't working? Because the real core of what's blocking koinonia as a body, right, isn't getting jigged.
Let me put it this way. Before I became a Christian, I first had to admit that my old ways of thinking were wrong, that my preformed ideas were wrong. That my complete understanding of the universe, that rocks just collided together and created this planet and everything was random and we're just here spinning on a rock, and maybe there's a possibility of something out there, but it's not involved in our day-to-day lives. That was a core foundational belief that I had. And in order for me to become a Christian and to accept Christ into my heart, I had to acknowledge that my previous presumptions about the nature of the world and the nature of life were wrong. And the same thing is true for people to fully embrace multiculturalism and diversity. They have to admit that their preconceived notions previously, the pillars of white supremacy, first of all, that they exist, and second of all, that they're wrong. And that takes a lot. It took a lot for me to become a Christian. The first 5 weeks that I went to church, I sat in the lobby. I sent my kids to Sunday school and I didn't listen to the message. And so I think it takes some work. Hearts have to be softened first. I don't know how to do that, but I don't think that you can just put Black faces in a white supremacist culture and expect lives to be changed. Hearts really have to start to change to really genuinely accept Black people, not just as this is my friend Reggie who's the exception to what I see all other Black people as, but to say we are all one human race, equal, who might have different circumstances, who might have disadvantages, yet we can come together.
Man, I hear that. I appreciate that so much, Jay.
Thank you.
Repentance, that ability to be humble enough to acknowledge our error, that's like supreme and so necessary. I think in our sort of evangelical conversion culture, we've come to see repentance as a one-time moment in our lives, the moment you're describing where you went from, not believing to believing. But I don't think that's enough. I think repentance is something we're called on to do all the time. The kingdom of God is right here and we keep not grabbing it. And it takes a lot of humility to say, not only is the system broken, I'm broken, and I gotta be dismantled and deconstructed and rebuilt again, because it hurt the first time. I really don't want to do it again tomorrow and the next day, but that I think is what the Spirit of God calls us to, is to continually be reformed. And I don't know. I don't know if we're going to solve all the problems tonight, but Reformation is definitely is knocking at the door right now. And for me, the door of my heart, I'm trying to answer and say, how can I be reformed into the correct or a more correct image, that reflects more the nature of Christ and the kingdom of God. We talked a bit. I think we were together yesterday, weren't we, Ryan?
Yes.
Before, and about the very popular phrase systemic racism, which is either now accepted as an obvious reality, or it's already, people have already denied it and they just don't want to even deal with it. But systems are a big deal, and the church is a big system that is going to take a lot of courage and time and humility and repentance to rebuild that system. Because I think there's a lot of, what I hear happening here is we're saying, yeah, it's cool you got a Black friend, but why don't you have a Black boss? Why don't you have a Black pastor? When are you going to let go of some of the power and the control? And how are we going to redesign systems so that the vision that I think we would all, acknowledge we want to see, a world where we're truly one, could actually happen and thrive.
Yeah, that's a good word. That's a good word. That's a good word. Humility and asking the question. I think we were. Yeah, I look at this thing, and we have to really do better. I'm reminded of Saul trying to kill David, and as worship leaders and as people who prepare in the temple. Mark, we talked about this for so long. Prepare in the temple. There are so many great pastors out there and churches that have been doing this work. Like Harley has been trying to wrestle this thing in. And as we're praying to be one all the time, but as the Lord is beginning to answer those prayers, we're going to be confronted with some things as to why we really aren't one, right? And we really can't excuse them away because the fruits are on the tree right outside of our window, right? So the people that are coming up that may not necessarily be Christians, and Jay were talking about them. I mean, the church has kept out popular culture so long and has force-fed, right, the people who believe Jesus Christ this way that those that are secular has kind of run away with their own mindset and their own vision. And their way is, man, we know American history and we don't understand why this is still going on in faith. Because I actually have a black friend, so to speak. I don't refer to them as that. And I'm in koinonia with them, right? We are really one in that regard. So they're not going to trust, right, the institution, the system. They're just going to invent their own way to make it happen, and it may not be along the lines of our own personal liturgy. You know what I'm saying? So it's an interesting thing for us to consider, what the next steps are for us as a church that love diversity and what that actually means in our body against the backdrop of what's happening in our society. Because most people are saying, I personally believe that the koinonia is missing. I can sing, I can play, and people would worship and the anointing, but I still gotta go running them run for them hills, right? Because I don't feel secure in this system.
What do you mean run for them hills? What do you mean by
that?
Well,
David, after he played and, Saul tried to kill him, so he had to leave and he had to go and he had to hide. So a lot of people are like, we still feel, and I think this is, we don't have African-American here, but I think this, and I understand this with minority, like Mark says, it's about the idea of trust, right? It's about trust. We are conforming, we all have to live, we're moving through the system, we understand who has the powers, right? But it's about trust. And we don't trust the modus operandi. We don't trust the system, right? We don't trust any system that would have a mega church with a superstar preacher in the middle of the city with 99.9% white. I mean, it just doesn't translate anymore, right? So unless there's any other questions, we're gonna wrap. I'll allow you guys to do a closing words. You want to start with you, Dan?
Yeah, I think as hard as it is and as discouraging as it is, we have to keep pressing on toward it.
Yes.
And I'm speaking to myself because I have 10,000 times questioned whether I should keep doing what I do. Mm-hmm. But God keeps pressing me in because it's his view of the church. And John 17 has inspired me all these years. When Jesus was praying his high priestly prayer before he's crucified, and he says, Father, I pray that they would be one so that as we are one. What? That's so crazy. And so that the world would know you sent me. Mm-hmm. So the legitimacy of our faith, the legitimacy of our message is tied in with our unity.
Yes.
And so that's why we press on toward it. And and so, you know, we have to keep on. It's not optional that we get to just get to skip out on this idea. And I think convincing, I think a good theology of the church seeing, no, this is necessary. This is necessary. And so therefore it has to be in our DNA. It's not like, well, that group, that little fringe group over there, that's great. You're great that you're doing that, but that's not our brand. Everybody's brand should be biblical unity. And we, you know, and I qualify unity within the word biblical, because we've got biblical parameters around what that looks like. But I also think the other thing that I've been convinced of all of these years, one of the things that I've tried to do in leading this thing is to influence people, win people, inspire people about it. Because beating people up over it doesn't usually work if they have an escape, which most people do. There's some way they can get out of the conversation, they can leave, they can just ignore. But I think the goal, I think, is every way we can to be so winning and so inspiring that we are drawing people to it, and they go, this is great. This should be everywhere. This is what we're doing. What they're doing there is beautiful, and that's what we need in our culture so bad. And I think that you know, that's a key thing.
Somebody else. Thank you. Thanks, Dan. Who's up? Yeah, go ahead, Jay or Mark or Nate.
Yeah, I can jump
Marco?
in.
Yeah, Marco.
Yeah, Marco. Boy, I can just start with me. And I posted or told a friend this. I just said, I know things are changing because I'm changing. That is, that's where it's got to start for me. And I think a willingness to be uncomfortable is an important thing. A broken heart and a willingness to repent, as Nate said, I think that's just massive. I think enter the room listening. These are good things that I'm finding are helping change me, and that's why I'm expressing them. And others may have other things, but I am being very decisive on making decisions of building relationships, new relationships, fostering old relationships, reconnecting. I'm doing that deliberately. I am putting in the effort and the work, and I'm trying to find my role, because I am a leader in a certain way. But I can't speak for my friends of color, but I can champion them. But I can lead and speak to white Christians, because that's kind of my world, and that's my kind of where I can help. So I'm just trying to navigate and find where God wants me. I do know his kingdom is a level playing field, and the things that keep it, that we are the same, is that we're all his children. He loves us all. We're all busted and broken. We all need love. I mean, if we start at some of those core things that do unify us, because I don't see the need to water down anybody's ethnicity. I want to embrace and celebrate the differences and the beauty of what God has created. And so I don't know, those are the things that I've applying to myself, because I guess my point is things are changing because I'm changing. And so if we all take that, we will change this system that's totally busted. And historically speaking, new. I mean, it's not what God created, you know.
Jay.
I want to start where the foundation is, with the words of Jesus. This is from Matthew 10. Whoever acknowledges me before others, I will also acknowledge before my Father in heaven. But whoever disowns me before others, I will disown before my Father in heaven. Do not suppose that I have come to bring peace on earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I've come to turn a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies will be members of his own household. Because anyone who loves their father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who loves their son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. Whoever does not take up their cross and follow me is not worthy of me. For whoever finds their life will lose it, and whoever loses their life for my sake will find it. And that is a word and a word and a word, because Jesus is a wrecking ball, and we forget that too often. From Paul, who was Saul of Tarsus, to Martin Luther King, to today, to every well-meaning white person who's willing to be a traitor to people in their own household and people in their own community for Black lives. That's the call of Jesus. That's his words. So if you're comfortable with the people around you and the people in your family, and you all get along, and everybody's in this homogenous 99% white community, you're not living the gospel. Because he didn't come for you to sing kumbaya with everybody that looks like you. He came to divide you for his sake, to embrace him. Because Jesus is white, and Jesus is Black, and Jesus is Asian, and Jesus is Latino, and Jesus is every shade on this earth. And so that's what we really need to be fighting for. When we fight for multiculturalism, we're not fighting for ourselves, we're fighting for Jesus Christ.
Whew. You know, Khan, well, a couple of weeks ago, she was here with us, and she was saying that when the scripture talks about to seek after righteousness, right, the same word a lot of times is used for justice, you know, and I'm reminded of Amos 5, when, you know, the Lord is saying, I'm tired of your festivals. I'm tired of all these songs and all this stuff, right? Vertical, right? But instead, also let justice roll down like a river, horizontal, right? So it's okay to not have an answer for all these things, okay? I resonate, Dan, with your struggle through the time. I mean, we've seen it with my own eyes, right? I resonate, Mark, with you. I resonate with Nate. Jay, I resonate with you. There's no easy answers for this. We all have to take some personal responsibilities, but one of the key responsibilities that we have to take is to speak out against the system that block God from doing what he needs to do, right? We have this conversation, and one of the things that's important, like Dan was saying, for some people, if it's not nice, they want to leave. Leave. Right? If you don't like the word racism and white supremacy, shuts down the conversation, okay, that's fine. My exhortation is to stay at the table with your brothers and your sisters and have the conversation. Don't just leave, right? Don't leave. Stay at the table, have the conversation, work things through, because God is definitely doing something in America. He's doing something in the world, and we want to be a part of what he's doing. Like Jay said, he's a wrecking ball, man. Right? He's a wrecking ball. So things are definitely changing, guys. So I want to thank you guys for coming on. Right? Those who were leaving comments, a ton of comments, 28 comments. Mark Bueller is on, Dan. Yeah. So a lot of people. So guys, I want to close with a word of prayer. And as worship leaders, man, I want us to continue to bring our best sacrifice to the Lord. Dan, I 100% agree with you. We have to keep pushing on because it's the call. The unity of the body is the testimony that Jesus Christ is who he says he is.
Yeah.
So only the Lord can do for us, because we can't do this by ourselves. But praise the Lord, we're at the table. Amen. So let's pray. Father, we come before you now in Jesus' name, and we praise you, Lord. We don't have the answers for this. We know that there's a lot of things that has caused so much pain and multicultural type initiatives. There's so many things that are wrong. There's so many broken hearts, more broken hearts than it seems like are mendable, God. But Father, your word says that whatever happens, regardless of whatever happens, you are in charge. Your word says that you love us. Your word says, God, that there's no other name given in heaven or earth whereby we could be saved, but by your name. So, Father, we bring all of this and we lay it at your feet, God, and we ask in the name of Jesus to do what you do, which is to work on behalf of your name's sake. Father God, we humble ourselves in the name of Jesus so that we can be your vessels and we can participate in this work. We ask that you give us courage, right? Give us the courage to speak the truth. Sometimes we got to call things whitewashed tombs. Give us the courage to speak the truth. Give us the courage to mend up those that are broken. Give us the courage to change the things that need to be changed. For your name's sake, Father. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, guys.
Yeah.
Man, that was heavy lifting. All right, gentlemen, thank you for coming on. Those of you that was watching via Facebook, thank you so much. Be sure to share. We'll be on again next week. God bless.
God bless.
Yeah, bye.